Hi guys, welcome back to episode 4 of me breaking down After the Flash's code. Now, I said I was going to stop at episode 3, but I had a really neat idea that I thought would be very fun to showcase. We're going to be sort of rebuilding After the Flash's systems and reviewing how they could have been done better in a more complete format. To start, I actually want to reference an image from, I think it was episode 2, because this gave me let's see. Where are we looking for? We have a image I'm looking for that is a very good showcase as to what I am referencing. It might be in episode 5. Let's find out. Sorry, no, that would be episode 3, I mean, actually. Ah, here it is. Okay, so in this image, I referenced this very briefly in episode 3, so we're going to be going over it a bit more. If we look at the image, you can see Chad is going down the list and referencing the player's info, the player itself, their data, and their own packs. And then he seems to be storing a variable that would count how many props they're allowed to have, like increase in their prop count. Frankly, this is just an awful way of doing things. Over here, I created an example, 2 examples actually. One of them is closer to what Chad's original vision would be, and the other one is just a better way of doing things. If we were really going to stick with how Chad wanted to make it, we would do it like this, where we create our new count limit, and then we store the player's packs to avoid the re-indexing, because as you can see here, we are continually re-indexing the player's array to find their data. In this one right here, we're just going to store the packs, and then we're just going to index it like this, and then we'll increase it. I wouldn't do it this way. This is just a lot to write out and a lot of copying and pasting. What I would do instead is up here, I would create a new array of your prop pack data and how much it increases. And then we'll just iterate the array. So we say player object.prop count, assuming there's a player object. And we're going to do owned packs and owned packs that enable equals true. So we're going to check if he has the pack and if it's if it's allowed. And then we're going to increase it by the props account, or we're going to just do it by 0 because we do not want to accidentally just give them props they don't own. This is one thing to show how a system could have been done better, and it just wasn't. So we're going to actually get into the meat of today's episode. So today's episode is going to be focusing mostly on the GUI in terms of relation to the rigging system and the kit system, because that's what was majority in the stream I was reviewing. So we're going to create a new file here. We're going to call you player rigging. Now, even though Chad is working in Roblox and I'm working in Visual Studio Code, it practically is the same thing. So let's start with what we're looking at here. We have module.gui button activate frame edit. We can shorten this by doing and we're going to create now a function. Sorry, we're actually going to do module.gui actions should equal this. This will let us create a little subsection, so when we require our modules, we're going to create a new file. We're going to call you init. This will just create our server file, but we're going to have it like this. We can then do require at self/player rigging, and we're just going to make it local. And then we're going to do player rigging.gui action. Cleaner looking code. You do have to re-index things and stuff, so you got to pick your battles with this one. I think it works, but you could always just you could always just do multiple things. So for example, we could create new file, GUI actions, and you can do it that way. We're not going to do it that way for this tutorial and stuff, because I don't want to have to type out all these individual files. So for now, we're just going to be focused on like this. And we would assume that this would be a separate module, but it's not. So you get the idea. So we're going to look back here. GUI button character edit frame. So we're going to do function module dot GUI action dot activate character customize. And do we pass any variables to it? Let's find out. Okay, so it seems like he's tool edit frame. So I'm going to take a guess underneath this gear. He's cloning it based on how he's doing this. So we're once again going to look at this, module GUI. So he's once again storing modules. So we're going to instead do module.GUI items should equal this. And since this is for customization, we're going to make it so boom. This is already looking cleaner already to avoid having this giant string of code. So now we're going to move. Let's reopen image 1. So now we're going to store customization frame. And we're just going to set this be a frame. Since we don't actually have the instances, we're just going to be doing this. This is like a mock version of that. So we'll start by tool edit frame in current world weld pivot. Okay, so what we're looking at here is primary part. Oh, okay, so he's getting the position of the current weld point. Okay, do we reference item.parent? We do. So we're going to actually do another variable. We're going to do local tool edit frame should equal module .GUI items .customization frame clone. Let's see, do we ever reference the module .GUI on here again? No. So this is fine, actually. Since we're not going to be referencing module.GUI over and over again, we don't need... Actually, wait. I stand corrected. We have one right here. So we're going to actually change this. We're going to change it to local GUI elements should equal module.GUI items. And then we're going to change you to GUI elements. This is going to reduce the amount of indexing we need to do. And then at the bottom, we're going to get rid of it. So we're going to make this equal nil. So now we're going to take our tool edit frame. Let's see, what do we do with the tool edit frame? I see, so we're going to be changing some values in there, like tool in use. Okay, so he's using instance values. We could probably edit this by, instead of doing that, we can do... Okay, let's see. We're not going to do a new thing. We're actually going to change this to pass self. And I want module.states should equal this. And I want local... Actually, since we are creating a new one, we're going to actually just... We're going to initialize this. We're going to do local state data should equal. And then we're just going to do, at the end of our list, module.states tool edit frame should equal state data. And then we're going to state data should equal nil. And we're going to compress this down into one line. We're also going to probably get rid of tool edit frame because I don't think we're returning it. Yeah, we're not returning it. So we can set you to nil as well. Doing this just helps ensure that you aren't using all this extra memory that you aren't like gonna be using. So now that we have this, we're gonna be changing these two to visible. What we could do is customization frame.toolrigs.object frame. Okay, so we're storing these. I kind of wonder if this is actually not cloning the UI, but simply switching its state to visible. So in fact, we're going to actually just change this to not clone, because I think he might not be changing this one to, well, cloning this one. I don't know what cleanup draggers does, so we're going to ignore that for now. My guess is it's going to destroy all the handles, but we'll ignore that for now. Okay, so we'll now go to the end. We're going to add a comment here so we can have some cleaner code. Post init. Cleanup. So now that we're past our initialization phase, we're now going to do tool edit frame dot. Actually, we'll just redeclare this variable. dot visible should equal true. Okay. So we have object edit frame and rig edit frame. We're now going to do GUI elements. In fact, since we're referencing the customization thing, we're going to change this. We change this to just dot customization, and we're going to get rid of that. And now we're going to store Alright, so now that we've done that, based on his code, we're also going to do part frame. Where do we find part frame? Okay, so we have another thing I have to look at. Oh no, it's actually weld point tool edit frame, weld point frame. Okay, so we're gonna now, instead of reindexing, we're gonna store this. So I'm actually gonna go down here quickly, and I have to clean up my values that I already used. The reason why I'm adding @any at the end of all of these is to avoid any type errors. You don't have to do this, because those actually do not affect anything, but I don't like having my console filled with errors saying that blah 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 is happening. Okay, cleanup draggers all. We're probably going to also do a module.enum should equal this, and then we're going to do dragger cleaning should equal okay, and then we can do local function clean draggers. We don't know what the code is for that, so we're going to ignore it, but we're going to do state. Alright, did he do that first or last? Okay, no, he did that first. We're going to actually move you above all of this. You can already begin to see how this is infinitely more clean looking than what he has over here. We have all of this, like, indentation and things. We can also probably do the for loop and all of this stuff. But as you can see, we already have shorter lines and way less indexing. We already cleaned this up. So we cleaned you, cleaned you, cleaned you. Yep, okay, so we cleaned up all these variables. This is one example of what could be done better. Obviously, there's more code here that we could look into, but you get the basic idea and stuff. We're going through and we're going to try and reduce indexing and make the code more readable. Next up, we have this one. Based on what I'm reading, it looks like it's a notification adder. We can already start by just changing this to, instead of having action debounce, we'll do and then we'll be able to... Sorry for the cut there, guys. I had to fix something over on my end. I apologize. So we're going to go back here, and we're going to change this so we can store action debounce. Should equal false. We're actually going to modify this to define self as type of module. Now, when you're using type of in the context of your code itself, it's an entirely different thing. What we're doing here is we're merely just using it as types, which are stripped upon your code being compiled. Way easier to work with. So we're now going to do our function, and we're going to do add kit. Okay. So we're going to start by function module.gui action.add kit. So before we do anything, we're going to get rid of all of this stuff. So we're going to go back here. And are we storing? We are. Okay. So assuming we have our this, we're going to change you to notification should equal local notification frame should equal self dot. Back, we're actually going to probably, since this is still for customization, we're going to do local customization should equal and I want our local state should equal notification frame should equal self dot states notification frame. So now we're going to get down to our actual main code. We're going to remove you, post init. We're now going to check if state if self.debounds. You know, since we're actually only gonna, I don't think we're changing the state in this, are we? No, we are. Okay, so we're gonna actually keep that. We're gonna keep that saved, and then if state.debounds. And we're now going to change this to build another enum. So we're going to go back up here, and we're going to notify states. Now, you're probably asking, why am I doing it this way when I keep mentioning not to try and re-index things? There's a very good reason for this. It means that you can have shared values across all your code via these enumerators. Even though, yes, it is more processing power because you're referencing something in a table and having to index it, it results in you being able to update one reference without having to update every single reference throughout your entire code base. Re-indexing isn't bad, but to the point where he was using re-indexing, it was, if that makes sense. So we're now going to, register another thing. We're going to do module.events should equal. We're now going to do local and now we're going to go to our events, and we're going to do something very similar to what I've been doing. So instead of like last time, I'm going to define events in the different sections. Since we're only going to reference our customization events here, we don't need to do that. We're actually going to cache local run service should equal. Since this runs, actually, no, since this runs on the context of the client, we don't need to worry about that. So should equal replicate storage, wait for child, remotes. Now, usually you want to avoid waiting for child inside of your modules. However, since we don't have some kind of initializer to check if our assets are loaded, we're doing it this way. So now we're going to do And we're gonna add kit from code. Okay, so we're gonna return out of here. I don't want to let these values just sit, so we're probably... Let's start nailing things down below and we'll solve what we're gonna do there. Okay, looking good, looking good. So to avoid having to worry about the cleanup, what could we do? See, even I get stumped sometimes. You know, I do wonder how often this code runs. Because if the code runs often enough, what we can do is we'll change this to this. Oh, wait, no, because we already store that. And I don't want to wrap it inside of an if statement, because that would look ugly and make the code less readable. You know, we could probably return out of here and just... I don't like this necessarily, because if I had a choice, I would use a goto function, but we don't have that, unfortunately, so I'm unable to just jump from here to our final cleanup step. So this is not ideal, but it'll be fine for now. A few values here and there that be cleaned up isn't the worst thing in the world. Okay, so why are we doing this? Okay, so why would it error? I don't know. We can instead just do and what are we checking? Use save dimensions. We probably would have all save variable local. We'll just save it as I. Since I don't know how our save dimensions is going to be laid out, so we're just going to put that here. So we're going to do return. And we're going to change this. We're going to add another enum. So then we can now invoke to the server self.events. Sorry, we're actually going to do self.enums.remoteactions.kit from code, and then self.saved dimensions. And boom, we already have a much cleaner line of code than this gigantic line of code. Seems like we're also passing item. I'm not sure what value would go here because that code got cut off. So we're going to leave that as nil any. So we're now going to go here. And then we're going to... I now want module dot states notification frame should equal suck boom. So now what we're going to check here is, what did we use returned info for? Huh? Do we ever even reference returned info in the script? Might be something he did later, I guess. I don't know. Don't know, but we're gonna just get back to work here for now and just ignore all of that. So we're gonna go back here. And we're just going to assume we're returning returned value. So we're gonna return returned value. Actually, you know what we might do? We're just gonna... This way, later on, if we want to come back, we can modify that. And then we can just do... There! Arguably a lot better, so we can come back to that if we ever need to reuse that value. And then he does wait 0.1. We're going to change this to use task.delay. And then we're going to do... Well, actually, I can just do this better. I see what I was doing. Self.debounce.actionBounce should equal false. There. Already, we are looking at infinitely cleaner code that's going to be much easier for bug fixing as well, because you can now see very easily what you're looking at. And instead of all of this extra stuff, we've reduced it by a few lines and made it easier to work with. Yes, there is more cleanup that needs to be done. This is not a bad thing, though. Having to do extra cleanup doesn't mean it's bad code. It means it's... Well, I guess it means it's more memory safe because you're cleaning it up. Let's see, what did I grab here? Again, this is just a lot of re-indexing, which we've covered in previous episodes, so it doesn't really matter. But I just brought it in here just so you guys can see what we're looking at. Prepare display kits. Let's see what we're looking at here. Display models should equal name.id. So we're going to create player kit and kit data, new kit. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna now grab our display models. So, you know, I do wonder, what is the display model? We're probably going to just assume that it is something useful. So we're gonna do... GUI items, customization. We're now going to change this. And you already know exactly what's going to happen here. we're going to once again grab our customization, and we're going to go down here, and customization should equal nil. Let's see, do we reference any specific data here? No, we actually don't. So we do not need to implicit self for this module. So it seems like we switched from the context of the server, not the server, the client to the server. So pretty much all of this can be ignored. Moving on to here. So as you can see, here we're referencing self, as this is where we're storing client data. But this is not on the client anymore, so we do not need to worry about referencing data on the client. Did I ever actually use self here? I don't think I did. No, I did. No, I did. I see it now. Okay. We'll ignore that then. Okay, so we're gonna start by local display model should equal customization dot athlete model clone. And we would probably want to store that somewhere for cleanup, but it doesn't really matter for now. So we're going to move you up top. Okay, so now we have this. We have our display model dot human. Oh, he's using humanoids. Oh god. Okay. Body width, body depth. Okay, rig character. Okay, so this is where he's storing the dimensions of the object. We could probably just get rid of all these attributes and store that and just keep that within the kit data. I don't know why we would need to have all that information, but it's whatever. We would then in here, we would then set our scale. If we're really dead set on using humanoids, we would do it like local. Is he using a custom object for this? Or is this a depreciated thing? Oh, it's a value. Oh. Why? Oh, okay. I don't usually work with humanoids, so I didn't know that. Okay. Already, we are looking at infinitely cleaner code, And I've cleaned up all these values, right? Yep. And again, this is not fully a complete system, but you can already begin to see the makings of how the system would work. This is just bad. Why? 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 Okay. Oh my god, okay. If we're using numbers for our codes with no letters at all, we can just do local function gets kit code. Notice how that looks better than this? And I guess we could do something where you have to check all codes. We can just do local codes should equal. But even then, this is just highly unnecessary. I could probably make it better with a string dots. I actually don't know the function for it, but I do know that there is a function that would let you just loop these. Let's see, I think it was string.rep. No, yeah, that wouldn't work. Yeah, you get the idea. It's just a bad way of doing things, so that's it. I brought this in just because this is just a peak example of why we store values or why we separate them. Look how much re-indexing he is doing in this code. Market frame, that trade. We would store up to the market trade value, and then we'd grab our specific buttons. This is just not how you would do things in an optimal way. Find new kits. Again, with the attributes, we could just pass it around as data. I don't get it, but it's whatever. Okay, guys, that will complete this episode of reviewing After the Flash's code. I hope you enjoyed. In the comments, please leave any other systems you'd like me to touch on directly next.